Hi, welcome back to Science 1206, the Chemical Reactions Unit. I'm Ms. Ledwell, and in this video we'll talk about how to name binary ionic compounds. Let's get started. To begin, let's define ions. Remember that ionic compounds are composed of ions. Recall that ions are created when atoms or groups of atoms gain or lose electrons, resulting in an overall positive or negative charge. Remember that there are two types of ions, cations and anions. Cations have an overall positive electrical charge. This is because they have lost electrons and therefore have more positively charged protons than negatively charged electrons. Anions, on the other hand, have a net negative electrical charge because they have gained negatively charged electrons. Let's take a look at this in diagram format. Let's say we have a neutral atom. If that atom loses electrons, it now has more protons than electrons, so it becomes a positively charged cation. If we have a neutral atom that gains electrons, it now has more electrons than protons, so it becomes a negatively charged anion. So how do we name these ions? To name the positive ion, known as the cation, simply state the name of the element followed by the word ion. For example, when sodium loses an electron, we say sodium ion. When magnesium loses 2 electrons, we say magnesium ion. To name the anion, the negative ion, we state the name of the element, but we change the suffix to "ide." For example, for chlorine, we have the chloride ion, and for oxygen, we have the oxide ion. Recall that binary ionic compounds are ionic compounds that contain only 2 different elements. Binary means composed of 2 things. For example, potassium chloride, magnesium sulfide, and calcium oxide are all examples of binary ionic compounds. They contain 2 different elements. Magnesium carbonate, MgCO3, is an example of a compound that contains more than 2 elements. While magnesium carbonate is an ionic compound, it is not binary ionic because it has more than 2 elements. The first element in a binary ionic compound is the cation, a positively charged metal, and the second element in the formula is the anion, a negatively charged nonmetal. Let's take a look at our examples. Our first example was potassium chloride. We have the potassium ion is the cation, a positively charged metal, and the chloride ion is the anion, a negatively charged nonmetal. For magnesium sulfide, the magnesium ion is the positively charged cation, and the sulfide ion is the negatively charged anion. For calcium oxide, the calcium ion is the positively charged cation, and the oxide ion is the negatively charged anion, which is a negatively charged nonmetal. Next, we're going to look at the steps you need to take to name binary ionic compounds. To name binary ionic compounds, the first thing you need to do is name the positive ion. Its name is going to be the same as the name of its element. So for CaF2, we notice that it contains both calcium and fluorine. We name the positive ion first, it's just going to be calcium. For the negative ion, which is our second element, we change the ending to "ide." So fluorine becomes fluoride. So now we have the name of this ionic compound, it's calcium fluoride. It's important to note that ionic compounds do not use prefixes. Prefixes are used when naming molecular compounds, which we'll talk about later in this section. Now it's time to pause this video. Pause the video and grab a pencil and some paper, or you can open up a blank document on your electronic device. Number your paper or your document from 1 to 10. As each compound in the table on the next slide is revealed, write down the name of the compound. We will then review the correct answers one by one. Good luck! And after numbering your paper or document, resume the video. Let's look at number 1, LiCl. Name this binary ionic compound using the steps we just reviewed. And its name would be lithium chloride. Our next example, NaF, would be sodium fluoride. Mg3N2, magnesium nitride. Notice that for all these, the first element, we just write the element name as it appears on the periodic table. For the second element, we change the ending to "ide." Kf then would be potassium fluoride. Number 5, Ca3P2. Ca is calcium, P is phosphorus. This would be calcium phosphide. K2O, potassium oxide. BaCl2, barium chloride. Number 8, Al2O3, aluminum oxide. 9, SRI2, strontium iodide. And last, we have number 10, CaS is calcium sulfide. Again, to name binary ionic compounds, you're simply going to write the first element as it appears on the periodic table. For the second element, you just change the ending to "ide." Now it's time to continue on to the next video. But before pressing play, be sure to stand up and take a 30-second stretch break. I'll see you soon.